All right, today we're going to pull back the curtain on a super powerful, but honestly often overlooked feature of ETFs. We're talking about their tax efficiency. It's a huge advantage that can make a real difference to your long-term returns, and we're going to break down exactly how it all works.
So let me ask you this. You ever feel like you're doing everything right? You're investing, you're seeing growth, but then at the end of the year, bam, you get hit with a tax bill you just didn't see coming? Well, the reality is, for a lot of investors, there are hidden taxes secretly eating away at their returns, often without them even realizing it's happening. So here's our game plan. First, we're going to pinpoint that hidden tax bite. Then, we'll tell a tale of two funds to see exactly why one is so much better at avoiding it. After that, we'll look at the real-world impact, what it means to dodge that bullet. And finally, we'll talk about how you can make all this knowledge work for you and your portfolio.
Okay, so let's start at the source of the whole problem. It really all comes down to this one thing called a capital gains distribution.
Think about a classic mutual fund for a second. Inside that fund, the manager is buying and selling stocks all the time. Now, when they sell a stock for more than they paid for it, that creates a profit, a capital gain. And by law, the fund can't just hang on to that profit. It has to pass it, and the tax bill that comes with it, on to you, the investor.
And here is the part that just drives people nuts. You get taxed on these distributions even if you never actually see the cash. Even if you have it set up to automatically reinvest right back into the fund. It feels like you're paying taxes on phantom income. And yeah, it can be a really frustrating surprise come tax time.
So, this brings us to the tale of two funds. The critical difference in how mutual funds and ETFs are actually built. This little bit of financial engineering is the secret sauce behind an ETF's tax-saving superpowers.
So check this out. It's all about what happens when people want their money back. With a mutual fund, if a bunch of investors sell, the fund manager has to sell stocks to raise cash to pay them. That sale creates a capital gain, and that tax event gets passed on to everyone who's still in the fund. But an ETF? An ETF does something really clever. For big redemptions, it doesn't have to sell anything. It can just hand over the actual stocks directly to a big institutional player. So there's no sale inside the fund, which means no taxable event is created.
And this process, this is the key. It's called an in-kind redemption. It is the engine of ETF tax efficiency. Because no sale is happening inside the fund to give people their money back, no taxable event gets triggered for all the other investors who are just holding on. I mean, it's a really elegant solution when you think about it.
So just to sum it up, the tax magic comes from a couple of places. You've got those in-kind transfers that totally sidestep the need to sell stocks and realize gains. And on top of that, a lot of ETFs, especially the index tracking ones, just naturally don't buy and sell as often, which means fewer taxable events get created in the first place.
Okay. That's the theory. But what does this all look like in the real world? What's the actual impact on your bottom line? Well, the numbers might actually surprise you.
And wow, the difference is just dramatic. I mean, look at this. When you compare typical annual capital gains distributions, it's not even close. Year in and year out, a lot of mutual funds have to pass on these pretty big tax bills. And ETFs, that bar is practically zero for most of them most of the time.
The bottom line here is actually really simple, but it's incredibly powerful. When you avoid that annual tax drag, more of your hard-earned money stays in your account, invested, and working for you. And over the years, that compounding effect can turn into a serious amount of extra money for your future.
So now that you know all this, how do you actually put it into practice? Let's talk strategy. Let's talk about how to make this knowledge work for your own portfolio. First thing you have to understand is where this all matters the most. In a regular, taxable brokerage account, this tax efficiency is a huge advantage. But inside a tax-advantaged account like an IRA or a 401k, the game is different. Taxes are already deferred in there. So an ETF might still be a great choice for other reasons, but this specific tax benefit, it's much less of a deciding factor.
So here are your action steps. Number one, in your taxable accounts, it really makes sense to prioritize ETFs to cut down on that yearly tax drag. Number two, and this is important, this isn't a get-out-of-taxes-free card. You still have to pay capital gains tax when you decide to sell your ETF for a profit. And number three, for those retirement accounts, since the tax part is already taken care of, you can focus more on things like the fund strategy, its performance, and its costs.
So if there is one thing to take away from all this, it's this. The whole structure of an ETF is about shifting control. It stops the actions of other investors from creating a surprise tax bill on your doorstep. It puts you, the investor, in the driver's seat, letting you decide when it's the right time to sell and pay those taxes.
And that kind of leaves us with one last question to think about. We all know to check an investment's fees, right? We're trained to look for that low expense ratio. But after this, the real question is, are you also checking its tax efficiency? Because at the end of the day, what you don't lose to taxes can be just as important as what you don't pay in fees.